Also, don't mind this horrible, ugly, temporary habitat that's going on over here. This is my iguana. I'm in the process of setting up his PVC enclosure and everything. I just moved and it's a whole thing. Also, I have a lot of random junk on here, so I'm going to remove this real quick. Okay, this is not going to be a super in-depth, species-specific care video. I am interested in making those. I did educational pet parent coaching for exotics and stuff for years. I'm really passionate about it. However, this is going to be more of a very brief introduction to vivariums, bioactives, exotic animal care keeping, very general, right? So these are going to be my sand boas. This is a 40-gallon glass aquarium. They were for a little while originally in a 60-gallon. However, complications happened and it proved to be too large for them. So sand boas are very common for beginner snakes because they're small and very docile, like most snakes. They stay pretty small. This species, the males tend to get to 20 inches at most, so a little under 2 feet, and the females get to about 2 feet to 2.5, maybe even 3 feet in rare occasions. I'm going to pull out mine, and I'm going to show you mine, and then I'm going to put them to the side. I have not grabbed my my housing bin. I'm gonna go find that. These are just my cheap plastic bins. I usually use these for moving animals around, as well as other random things, and the snakes will occasionally eat in these. Now, if you are new to owning snakes and you are worried about your snake biting you and the difficulty on feeding inside the enclosure versus outside the enclosure, they are animals. They're very smart, just like us. This is their home, right? They can eat inside their home. Feeding them inside there is not going to be a problem unless you make it a problem. If you only open this to feed them and you never touch them, never handle them, then every single time you open this, they are going to assume they're getting fed. So if you feed them every single time and then you decide, maybe I want to touch them, maybe I want to handle them, and you normally never do that, guess what? You're probably going to get bitten or stricken or something. Right? They're going to be very uncomfortable with the interaction. So all you have to do is take them out, handle them before you feed them, or multiple times, at least once or twice, you know, in between feeding them, a couple times while you're feeding them, right? So you're handling and you're socializing with them. Also, exercise is very important for health, right? As well as enrichment. So just like any other animal, taking them out to explore, mosey around, exercise, stretch that little body and enrich themselves. Please, you need to take them out. Do not keep it. If you're having an animal and you're just keeping it in its little home, that's practically abuse depending on the home, right? If you're neglecting it, you're probably acting as if that animal is more or less for show, for a toy, and you probably shouldn't own it. Now, that does not include some animals that maybe you do not want to be handled and do not want to leave their enclosure, like a tarantula. I have several tarantulas. I can handle them, and I do practice handling them on extremely rare occasions. Some of them I do not handle, right? So it is a variety. Snakes, however, very intelligent animals that need enrichment, exercise, and exploration. Just keeping that in mind. Give me a minute. Okay, so this tank specifically, come here. I've had this set up. This is one pothos plant. This is one plant that I got for free as a gift. It was not this big when I got it. It took over the tank very fast. This is a very quick introduction to bioactives. Now, here's the thing, is even though this is a living plant and this is living soil, this is not technically a complete bioactive at this moment. There's no insects or bugs in here, or deciduous, sorry, that's the wrong word. There's no CUC. There's no cleanup crew in here. I'm just gonna go with general terms. It does have this little. I've had this little air plant. I've had this for years. It's healthy. It's alive. I don't know how well. Like, it's a good healthy air plant. Every once in a while, leaves will kind of die, and sometimes I'll pull them off if they take a while to fall off. However, I can't get it to grow. I'm not super great with plants. I want to be. I really want a big home jungle and full bioactive terrariums that I'm working on. I used to have a lot more. Long story behind that, I don't anymore. However, I have had this one air plant for years, but I can't get it to grow. If anyone knows anything about air plants and getting them to grow, making them super happy, or if you just know the species, maybe you can help me identify this species. Maybe it doesn't get very big. I don't know. It's also just like, you know, it's never flowered or reproduced or anything. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. But it's alive. And it seems relatively healthy. I've had it for years, so. Okay. So, with bioactives or semi-bioactives like this, I don't really deep clean. You don't really want to. The only thing that I do regularly is kind of, sometimes I'll add fresh soil. That's pretty rare. I'll add fresh leaf litter or decaying matter or something like that. And I do fertilize the plant on rare occasion. But for the most part, all I really do is take out the snakes. I give them a little health check on them. Make sure they're not having any issues or if there's anything new or noticeable. Sometimes I take their weights. I don't always do that because they're pretty much adults and they don't really change. I'll pull them out in a second. And then sometimes I'll take out the bigger stuff and I'll kind of stir up the soil. I just want to see what the soil looks like. Is it looking good? Is it healthy? Is it too stale? Is it staying moist? Is it still moist underneath? Because, okay. I think I need to sit down for a minute because when you're putting together a terrarium, bioactive, anything like that, right, you need to understand what you're going to put in it, right? And typically what you want to put in it is going to be the main focus. So you're setting up terrarium, what do you want? Is it specific plants? Is it a specific biome or habitat? Or is it more likely a specific animal, right? When you're looking at this, the animal is the most important thing because that's the thing that you need to take care of and it needs to thrive. He or she or whatever it is. Now, the Kenyan sand boas, right, they're in arid to semi-arid, kind of sub-deserts to almost deserty areas, right? They're very loose sand. An extremely dry climate. Very low rainfall where they are from naturally. They're native to Eastern and Northern Africa, kind of all between there. On that side, sorry, like trying to gather my thoughts. Anyways, dry climate, but in order, like, they're burrowing animals, they're fossorial, they're underneath for the most part, right? So that it becomes a complicated issue when you're learning to do terrariums like this because you need it to be hot and dry up on top, but they need to be able to burrow down and extremely get into that humid, moist soil underneath. So I've been able to put together and develop a really nice mix that stays dry on top and moist on the bottom, and then I go in there once a week, ish. Usually it's still pretty moist, and I'll water the crap out of plants in the terrariums and then mist it down, and then by the next day that top layer is going to start to get dry again. But underneath the few inches of soil there is going to stay very moist. So it doesn't look like there's much here. There's about 2 inches. It varies though. It's a little bit deeper in the back and then where like the plant is and stuff. And then the plant really does, the roots have really spread out throughout the whole terrarium. It's really thick, so I can't really stir up the soil anymore. However, the snakes are moving throughout here constantly on a day-to-day basis. I see them. They like to come out and explore and climb onto their big branches and through the plants and stuff every night, which is really nice. I am in the process of updating this. I want to make it a little bit more species appropriate, but when you're starting out and you're learning, you really want to focus on simplicity. Sometimes simplicity is the best thing. So start with what's important to the animal, right? Humidity, heat, moisture versus dryness, depth of the soil, right? Are they a digging animal? Are they a climbing animal? Do they need more arid space? All those little things, right? Focus on that first. Focus on the animal first. But make it all natural, right? Because that's what you want to do. You want to go towards that all natural. You want to make sure that animal is going to be naturally as healthy as possible and that they're able to thrive. And then you can kind of start adding with plants. Start with very simple, easy beginner plants. Ones I tell pretty much everyone that I would be coaching through it is the pothos. Pothos are incredible. They thrive in almost any condition, I tell you. Like, almost any condition. There are a lot of really great beginner plants, so you can simply look that up. People have all types of different recommendations for different environments and zones, and whatever habitat you're trying to create. But keep it simple. Usually, especially when I'm talking on aquariums, you want to maybe pick out a couple different plants and try those out all at once to see who survives and who didn't, right? And then maybe if it's just one plant, or maybe you got lucky with 2 or 3 of them survived, get a few more of those, and the more the merrier. The happier they're going to be, the better they're going to be able to communicate, talk to each other, and take care of each other. Plants will build their own little ecosystem. That's just how it works. And then you can start adding in all the other fun stuff, like the cleanup crews and other, fun stuff. Maybe multiple animals. You can go really crazy with these things, but you want to really keep it simple as first. And I think in the long run, from my experience, simplicity is always better. A lot of times, I usually have 1 or 2 really crazy, intense projects I'm trying out, and even if they are thriving for a while, they're kind of just, a lot of times, a lot of work, a lot of upkeep, and they don't thrive in the long run. All of my super simple terrariums have just thrived for a really long time. A lot of my aquariums, you keep them really simple and they'll thrive for years. The more complicated stuff tends to kind of downfall around a year or so, which is fine. If you like constant upkeep projects, that's fine. But I like to really just watch something thrive on its own and not have to really take care of it, if that makes sense. Okay, let me pull. Okay, I see one. There's one. They really like under these rocks, but not always. If they get a little hot or they just want to regulate, they'll move around. Especially during this time of day. Here's one. Let's see who this is. Hello. Looks like maybe the male. This looks like the male. So here's my male dodoma. Now, the dodomas, both of my male and my female are pure dodomas. And the dodoma is basically, where if you look at ball pythons and there's all those different morphs. So the dodomas are very special and a bit more expensive because they have really healthy genetics, because it's actually a naturally occurring morph. So they're prized among this species, a few other ones. Alright, I found her. She was kind of hidden on the side where the cork bark was. And this side, I tend to keep a lot drier. So I think maybe she must have come over here on purpose to kind of get away from the humidity. And you can see, she's a lot bigger than the male. I'll put them side by side so you can see. Okay, I guess it's a little hard to tell, but she's a lot bigger than him. Look. She's so much bigger than him. Okay. Okay, so here they are in the bin just because they're a bit easier to see. So she's a bit more orangey, like a darker orange, I would say. But she's not normally like that. You see how her browns are kind of faded? She's actually in pre-shed, which kind of surprises me that she was on the dry side because of that. So I think she's getting ready to shed again, which doesn't surprise me too much. And then a lot of times, normally when I'm cleaning, I'll usually just take this opportunity to feed them. So a lot of times I do, when I see their heads poking up out of the dirt, and it's ready for feeding, I like to encourage their natural instincts to strike out of the soil, which is very, very cool. Only do that if you're really comfortable with their, not necessarily their behavior, that too, but also health-wise, you know, what substrate you have going on. You can trust that they're not going to have any problems if they digest some of it. If it is all natural, then it should be all digestible without an issue. Any type of soil is going to be fully digestible, but if they are on like full sand, that's a no-no. That's going to be a problem because if they swallow a lot of that by accident, that could cause problems, digestive or even impactful, which could be a big issue. If they are on an artificial sand, definitely not, or a walnut sand. I've seen this and I really like the texture of walnut sand and I think it's pretty universal, but however, it's full of processed chemicals, specifically silicon, and that can be very toxic and deadly, so I would not keep them on that at all, or at least not feed them on it at all, and just be very careful with that. Also, when that stuff gets wet, it's not good, it's gross. It's a problem. So normally what I do at this stage, I already took out their rocks, their stick, and their water bowl. I'm going to wash their water bowl. I don't constantly wash their water bowl, just kind of as needed. You don't want to overdo it or you might cause bacteria problems. Of course, you don't want to underdo it either because then you're also going to cause bacteria problems. So just keep an eye on it and do it as needed. If algae's growing in there, that's not a problem. Not harmful at all. Totally could just leave that unless it's bothering you or it's gross looking or something. And then I like to water the whole terrarium, mostly because the plant is now throughout the whole terrarium. And a lot of times when I water, I use my leftover fish tank water if I'm like cleaning any of my fish tanks. Most of my fish tanks are just top-offs, but there's a few that I do siphon out that have amphibians in them. They get really dirty, so that water I really like to use water plants and they love that. If not, in between that, I'll just do filtered water or treated tap water, so I don't have like those harsh chemicals going in, especially with the animals like the sand boas. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay. What I really need to do is sweep. Hey, Mooncake. Oh, is it bedtime? It is bedtime. Okay. Okay. I usually put most of the water kind of in the middle of the terrarium. One, that's where my main plant mass is at. And then it kind of disperses throughout the rest of the terrarium. What I usually do recommend though is keep one side kind of heavier watered and then one side drier so the animals or plants can kind of gradient between both options. I think it's time to release the beasts. Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up there. If you watched this whole video, or at least up to this point, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm still in the phase of forcing myself to make videos, even though, I mean, I just really want to and I really enjoy it. I just don't think I'm very good at it, and it's just kind of a, you know, a newbie thing. And then getting used to talking directly to cameras as well and you guys. I'm gonna wrap it up here. Yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. This is, again, a very general, basic, fun, casual video for people who are trying to, like, learn and figure things out. Figuring things out is going to be completely up to you. Yes, learning and education and sources are going to be your best friend. However, figuring things out on your own is going to be the most important thing, because even though people can give you perfect formulas of soils or perfect plants to use, and light bulbs and tank sizes and all that fun stuff, you know, every animal, just like every human, is different. Every environment's going to be different. How you take care of your tanks is going to be completely different depending on where you live, what your home environment is like, where the terrarium is in your home. You know, is it in your bathroom, or is it in your basement, or your living room, or your bedroom? Is going to vary. So it's a lot of trial and error and learning, and a way might work for somebody else, that way might not work for you. I want to make more in-depth videos, maybe a lot of species-specific videos in the future. It's not going to be a constant thing, but we'll see where it goes. Bye.